dorime, interimo ad appare dorime, ameno, ameno, lanciremo, dorime, ameno, o mandare imperavi, ameno, timere, matiremo, ameno.
You deal with mostly with quantum
mechanics is my specialization, but also I work in general in information theory, because the most important aspect, in my opinion, of quantum mechanics is quantum information, and so I see quantum information as a general paradigm that could perhaps cover also other scientific domains. For instance, in cognitive science, the basic paradigm by Wiener and so on was led in the 40 years, yes, and it was the classical information theory. But in my opinion, the latter 20 years have shown that this paradigm is perhaps too narrow, and so it is perhaps come time to substitute this paradigm with a quantum information theory that is far more wider than this one.
So in this conference,
yes.
We are
yes.
planning to begin a study,
Yes.
how to bring the concept of God in
Yes.
Modern scientific research.
Yes.
It seems to me that, especially in the study of light and its origin, most of the scientific works today are completely focused on trying to see that whether the molecules will finally result, the interaction of complex molecules ultimately result in producing life. So that seems to me that this plan is not even in scientific research work, it's not making much progress. So therefore seems like there's a strong need of, again, bringing the spiritual conception about creation, about the role of God.
Yes.
I'm just wondering your opinion in this connection.
Yes, I think that in our tradition, I mean in the West tradition, we suffer a lot an historical break between science and on one side and philosophy and theology on the other side. Because when the Copernican revolution break off, I mean in the many centuries ago, the historical circumstances around this historical accomplishment affected that first theology and science separated. and in the next time also philosophy. So we have, in my opinion, we Christian, I mean, now, but there is perhaps a problem with also several effects in the whole world. We Christian have an historical, we are conflict, but also we remained, if you will, for too much time separated from these historical developments. And so there is, first of all, an historical gap between the recent scientific development and the historical and theological reflection on and about these accomplishments. So there is a lot to do, really a lot to do, in my opinion. Really,
It seems to me that there is a certain change in the Catholic, like a conception about Darwin's evolution. Because
Yes.
a few years ago, when I was in India,
yes,
when the Pope was making some, trying to make some adjustment
Yes.
with the Darwinian evolutionary concept,
yes,
it was headlined in all the newspapers in India.
yes.
So I'm just wondering, since you are right here, so your your realization about this Catholic, let's say, opinion about
Yes.
Darwin's evolution.
Yes. So I think it is impossible to go back before Darwin's theory. This is impossible. But it is also clear, in my opinion, that Darwin's theory could also constitute a part of the scientific truth. This is more and more evident in many scientific domains that there are a lot of factors that also play a role, and also a central role, in the development and evolution of living beings. It is not a chance, in my opinion, that, for example, epigenesis, all the developmental aspects of biology that are for me central, have been completely underdeveloped for many centuries, because the materialistic and mechanistic point of view of Darwin affected such an underestimation of this developmental factor. On the contrary, the emergence in the later years and the later decades of new points of view, for example, come from complexity theories or from other scientific domains, have to a certain extent opened our view on other aspects, and first of all on the developmental aspect.
But
Yes.
in our tradition,
Yes.
especially in the Vedantic tradition,
Yes.
I'm not sure whether you are familiar in India.
Just a little bit. I am really interested. I have read some texts of Indian tradition, but I first of all feel the necessity to learn Sanskrit in order to understand well these things, I think. So this is a big limitation for me.
Well, in the
Yes.
Indian tradition, we have a
Yes.
conception
Yes.
that called evolution of consciousness. We do
Yes.
not say, see, in the Darwinian model is the morphological, the
Yes.
external structure.
Yes.
It's evolving from the, let's say, lower forms of, say, life to
Yes.
the higher forms. But in our case, we say that the bodies, the forms are already there by the divine creation.
Yes.
That the forms are already existing.
Yes.
Either some are manifest, some are not manifest, according to certain subtle laws.
Yes.
But the consciousness
Yes.
of the living beings, they migrate or they evolve from
Yes.
this, because you can see that according to the body, our consciousness is the level of our consciousness different. For example, the animals, they have and the birds, they have a very low level of consciousness. But as we come to the human form of life, is that the consciousness is fully manifest. But this is called what we call the transmigration, life's journey.
Absolutely.
That this life's journey, there are several forms of life, including even microorganisms that apply to the very low forms of life. So, but in Darwin evolution, what happened is that Darwin could not recognize about the existence of the spiritual soul.
Excuse me, Marat, can we start with audio, please?
Yeah.
Yes.
Without the spiritual soul. So therefore, if Darwin, in the Darwinian paradigm, if we can bring in the concept of soul, but I don't think that will be possible because that won't be that won't be Darwinian, but that will be as a new kind of evolutionary conception. So therefore, that is a real problem from our side, that how to harmonize the evolution. We cannot accept Darwinian evolution as such without the soul. So that is the concept that we are trying to discuss.
But I find it very interesting what you say. And do you know there are, for example, in our Christian tradition also attempts at integrating Darwinian point of view in a, if you will, in a wider theological understanding of nature. For example, Teilhard de Chardin. Teilhard de Chardin is a Jesuit that who worked a lot of time about this point. And I completely agree that there are, in my opinion, different degrees in nature of consciousness and of, if you will, spirituality. I mean, everywhere in our world there is intelligence. This is not this is not a fact that concerns only human beings. Yes, there are different degrees, but you can find also traces of this point of view. For example, in the Middle Age tradition, the Christian Middle Age tradition. For example, Thomas of Aquinas, he spoke of the fact that also beasts and animals have some analogy of rationality. So they have some degree of rationality.
Yeah, that we also accept.
Yeah,
that.
I understand. This is the reason why I say this. So obviously he could not have an idea of evolution. This is evident. But I find nothing erroneous in the idea of evolution in itself. Obviously, I find only erroneous the use that one has made of this concept in order to prove that only the material being is the only form of existence. But this is the use that one did.
It's quite interesting. So I think what we need to do is that I think we need to have more close dialogue.
Yes, I
Because
hope.
we like to
I hope.
from all the traditions actually, we Poles regularly sit together and have some little patience to listen to each other, and then I think we could probably formulate maybe a combined some kind of theological, let's say, viewpoint. I mean, that is a scientific viewpoint. But they don't have to design that science, but similarly, all the theological conceptions available. I think that if we can all, I think, share together. I think that might come out a better, let's say, because we need a real theology of life, because that we can all agree.
Absolutely. But I am sure that many points I spoke today of the Trinitarian point of view.
Yeah.
I am sure that some basic concepts that I exposed today are also common in Oriental tradition.
Yes,
I am sure of this. So far I can understand.
Catholic conceptions are very close to what we practice.
Yes.
And so I think there are a lot of similarities.
Yes.
And
Yes.
only certain, like
This is normal.
so it's
We are-
natural.
We also pertain to different traditions, and the tradition is also important. But let us say that tradition is not an obstacle in order to converge on some important.
Yes. So I'm speaking in this session.
Yes.
So I think
Okay.
they already
Okay.
started. I'll
Okay.
see you now.
In the afternoon, it was a pleasure for me to meet you, really, and thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you to you, and we see us later.
Yes.
Okay.
You can join us in the banquet.
When? At what time?
The banquet actually starts. There is a session just before banquet at 6:30 in the evening.
16:30.
It's 6:30 at this week, and 8 o'clock is banquet.
Six.
So if you come at 6:30,
Here in this hall.
not in here, it's about 5 minutes walk from here. There's a place called the Resto Theatre.
Okay.
And it was a theatre before, but they converted it into a restaurant. But there is a balcony. And it's like a very interesting place.
Okay. I will do it at 6:30.
6:30. I think Robert Mann is speaking. He's a physicist from Canada,
Yes.
and Professor Raman is from the United States. They are speaking about the existence of God from a scientific perspective. So I think
I will come back. See us later. Thank you very much.
This is Professor Sermonte from here, from Rome, Italy, and Professor Mann from Canada, Waterloo University. And, so we are very happy that he could come today, participate in this conference. So I'd like to know your conception how to, let's say, continue this type of discussion in the future. Comment.
You mean how the dialogue would continue on after this conference?
Yes.
Well, I think, first of all, I think we're entering a new phase, I guess, in social history in the world, where all of the world's religious faiths, or at least all of the major ones, are actually beginning to talk to each other in a way that I would say was not true even 20 years ago, never mind 50. So I think meetings like this help further this kind of interfaith dialogue. And it's important, if only because I think it's better that we try to understand each other than that we attack each other. And I'm intrigued at the meeting by the overlaps between ideas and concepts that are not from my own faith tradition and beliefs, which is Christian, that there's more overlap in certain ways than I would have expected. So I think for the future, one could have meetings that explore the overlap. But I have one other comment, and that is it's necessary and it's easy to explore what we have in common, but it's also clear there are things that we do not have in common. And I think the real challenge for the interfaith dialogue is how are we going to come to grips with the points on which we do not agree?